Howdy ho, peepers and creepers. So, this one might be a lot of gibberish, so you might want to just dip out now. But I've got this Ram. It's a 2018 Ram 2500 6.7 Cummings with a 68 RFE transmission. Now, I'm not the most craziest towing fella. I'm not towing daily and all that stuff, and I feel like I have babied this ride when it comes to towing. When I first got it, my transmission temperatures were about 168 degrees, and I'd get to towing, and yeah, sometimes I'd end up towing in the hotter part of the day, coming back from a trip up north or whatever. And so when my temperatures would get up to about 180 degrees, 190 is memorable one time, I would usually pull over at the nearest rest area and kind of just let her idle down a little bit, crack the hood, pull the dipstick, and just let her rest, you know, and I'd have a sandwich or whatever it is, and then, you know, about 30 minutes to an hour later, I'd fire it back up and get going again. And so, you know, I was trying to be as diligent as I can about never just shutting the truck off, because you want that transmission fluid to kind of cool down. But what I noticed in my Ram, if I go to an idle time, my my transmission temperature would climb and my oil pressure would decline. You know, so it was just kind of interesting to say nonetheless. And so I was constantly milking that, you know. I was constantly watching my temperature with the transmission and the oil and coolant. And in this particular Ram, one time I got up to about 220 degrees with my coolant, and my oil temperature might have been about, I don't know, 210-ish or so. And then there was a fan that kicked on in the engine compartment. And once that did kick in, my temperatures dropped down to like 150 degrees for like the coolant. The tranny dropped down to like 160 something, which is where I'm used to seeing it. Like, that fan worked really well, but that was in the higher temperature range. Like I said, that was about 220 degrees, I want to say, for my coolant temperature. And so that didn't happen all that often with me, because I was always about 168 to about 180 degrees when towing. I think I got 10,000 miles in towing over, 6 years that I've had the trailer. And the trailer's only 7,000 pounds. So, you know, I'm not up at that 19,000 pound range, but my gross vehicle weight was at 17,550 pounds approximately. That's full gas, full bags of water, you know, trailer loaded down with my food and gadgets and all that good shit. And anyways, I wasn't getting more over about 180. Well, I started approaching the 100,000 mile on the truck, and I got a DEF air, service DEF air, right? And C dealer, you got 99 miles to drive, and then your engine's gonna self-destruct and you're gonna create a black hole. So I was camping at that time, no trailer. I was staying in a motel up north, you know, just fishing and stuff, and not knowing how to park at a lake and getting hassled by a BLM guy when I'm the only fucker at the lake. And for some reason I parked on the left side and supposed to park on the right side, but bunch of bullshit. I told him to ticket me and he just fucking left. So whatever. But anyways, I was, you know, 300 miles from home maybe. So I was like, shit. And it was a holiday weekend, so the nearest dealer was closed. So I'm thinking I'm replacing my DEF fluid injector. So I went to one of the hardware stores, bought the tools I needed, tried to call a couple diesel shops in the area. Everybody was off. Nobody had a injector for this Ram, the DEF fluid injector. So I'm like, okay, I got a couple more days of camping. I'm not gonna end my trip, so I'm just gonna keep on driving. And my mileage, it says it'll knock you down to 45 or 50 miles an hour or something like that. That never happened to me. It was still operating pretty normal. And when I got into the valley, I got back home after my trip. I called my service advisor, and he told me that I needed to bring the vehicle in ASAP to have the DEF system serviced because it's probably not pumping the DEF fluid. Well, I was noticing it was pumping DEF fluid because I get lazy and I'll run my engine exhaust brake even though I'm not towing. And, you know, coming down the hills, coming out of the mountains and stuff, it's kind of neat. You don't have to keep on braking, right? And I was noticing I am using DEF fluid. So I know it is pumping fluid still, and my light went off. So I'm like, okay, I'm still concerned about the DEF system, but everything's working normal. So, you know, I get just a little over 102,000 miles maybe, and all of a sudden my tranny goes to shit. Like, it is running like I'm in 4x4 mode, but I'm on just on a regular road. I'm like, damn, it feels like I'm in 4x4 mode, but it was really acting up. And then I got a service engine light, and so I went to the nearest AutoZone and scanned it, and it was talking about this transmission control block or something like that, which is a mileage thing, is what I'm being told. So I call the dealer, and the guy tells me, with the code I have, that's a transmission rebuild, not replacement, and that's $9,800 for a rebuild. He couldn't tell me what a new transmission would cost or to upgrade it. He didn't know that. He doesn't think my truck, they're able to put an ISAS in or whatever the hell the upgraded tranny supposedly in here. He doesn't know that my truck is capable to do that. So I'm thinking $9,800, damn, for a rebuild. So there's a transmission guy here in my city. I gave him a call and I told him what was going on. He's like, nope, bring it in, don't take it to the dealer, because I know exactly what's wrong with it. So I took it in, and he goes, just leave it with me. And then he gets back to me, he goes, yeah, he goes, there is an electronical control module inside the transmission. They go bad, you swap it out, you're back in business. I said, all right, cool. So he does that, charges me about $300. You have to pay for a transmission fluid change because you have to drain all the fluid out. So he does that, and I go about 30 days and the transmission acts up again. So I'm like, what the hell? So I call him and I tell him what's going on, and he goes, okay, man. He goes, I was hoping it was that block. He goes, but no, I'm gonna have to do further diagnosis, bring it back in. He goes, I'll have it done by tomorrow. I said, oh, really? I said, no, dude, you take as much time as you want, do it right, you know, and just rebuild it. Like I said, I've been looking at the 68 RFE transmission, and it sounds like it is probably not the best transmission for heavy duty towing. But I said, I'm looking at this RevMax stuff. And he goes, oh yeah. He goes, yeah, dude. He goes, you want a RevMax drum, a billet torque converter, and a couple other components, a hardened input shaft, you know, and he goes, and just rebuild the transmission. And I'm like, well, can't you just look at it and see, like, do I need a rebuild? I said, well, how much are you gonna cost me or charge me? He's like, I don't know, man. He goes, let me price this out. And at that point, you know, I'm at 100,000 miles in the Ram, 100 and some change. And I'm like, fuck, dude, this is supposed to be a 1,000,000-mile engine, right? So yeah, it's probably a 1,000,000-mile engine, but the transmissions are shit. But I had been babying that tranny, man. I got my fluid changes, all that shit. And the fluid is pink as can be. Like, it doesn't smell burnt or nothing. So anyways, I leave the truck with the transmission guy, and he just says, okay, I'm gonna recommend a billet torque converter, a RevMax valve body, a RevMax 3 clutch drum, a hardened input shaft, a pressure plate or something like that, and a pressure transducer. I'm like, shit. And then he's like, and just rebuild it, because we're gonna be in there, you might as well rebuild it. And so What's the price? $5,800. He's throwing in the fluid. Okay, I said, do it, man. And I talked to him about my temperature issue, how, it would start climbing to about 180 degrees, and I was a little concerned about that. And he says, well, let's just get this rebuilt, And so he gets into the tranny, and he calls me the next day, and he's like, hey, man, truck's ready. I'm like, what? You already got it done? He's like, yes, sir. I'm like, you're bullshitting. He's like, nope. So I go in, he had rebuilt the 68 RFE in a day, and he put the new torque converter in, the valve body, the pressure transducer, a pressure plate, I guess that attaches to the torque converter because the torque converter is larger. And he says, yeah, you're good to go, man. He goes, run it for 20, 30 miles and recheck your fluid, make sure the levels are still good. And if not, add a little bit more fluid. He recommended the manufacturer's original equipment for the fluid, no Royal Purple or nothing like that. And I contacted Royal Purple, and they said, nope, we do not recommend our fluid in those transmissions. And I said, okay, cool, whatever. So we just used the original equipment, which is the ATF4. And I said, well, Samuel, the transmission guy, said, when can I start towing again? And he goes, dude, right now, put it in service right now. And then I said, I go, well, what about break-in and all that, 500 miles or something? He's like, no, just go for it, just do it. And I said, really? I go, it's not good, doesn't need a little break-in time? And he goes, if you want to do it, but no, you could drive it right now. He said, hook your trailer up and drive it right now. And so I was like, okay. So as I was driving back from his shop, I noticed my temperature was at 172, the transmission temperature. And I'm like, whoa, that's not 168, so I'm about 8 degrees hotter than normal, 9 degrees, whatever it was. And no, 4 degrees maybe. And so I'm like, that's not a lot, but that's not where I used to be. So as I continued driving, it shot up to 180, 172, 180. And I'm like, okay, that's not normal for me, right? And I noticed my RPMs are up a little bit higher also, which they weren't normally. And so I called Samuel and I said, hey, dude, we got a problem. He said, what's up? I said, I'm running hot. He's like, what? I go, yeah. And he goes, what do you mean? And I told him, he's don't worry about that. That's nothing. And I said, well, I normally run 172 degrees, or correction, 168 degrees. And I go, but now the temperature's higher. And I started thinking back to the DEF time, the DEF air that I had. And I remember the temperature being up a little bit around that time. So I was like, I don't know, man, this is kind of interesting. So my transmission guy still tells me, dude, hook your trailer up and go. You're not going to have a problem. Because I've never had one of these trucks come back after I upgraded it with the RevMax components. He goes, just do it. And so I took him up on it, dude. I said, all right. I said, I'm going to do it right now, man. I'm going to go grab some clothes. I'm going to hook up my trailer, and I'm just going to point the truck west, and I'm going to drive. And he's like, do it. So I went home, packed up my backpack, threw it in the fucking trailer, hooked up my batteries and my propane, and I drove to Ajo, Arizona. And as I was driving, my temperature was consistently 180 degrees. And I'm like, okay, I don't like that. That's normally my pull over time. So I did pull over a couple times and, just let it rest for about 30 minutes or so. That was only about a 2.5 hour, 3 hour ride, I think. Maybe at most. But I did pull over a couple times just for completeness, just for completeness. And, just making sure that, what the hell? Am I still recording? I am. Sorry about the calls. The fluid wasn't, it was still new. It wasn't getting burned, the transmission seemed to have higher shift ranges, so I made it to my campsite, hooked it all up and all that, and I started reading up on RevMax and transmissions and a little bit more than what I had already researched. And like everything else in this world, these trucks, they learn what your behaviors are, so the computer is probably trying to fill me out as far as how hard am I hammering on the gas and stopping and towing and the amount of power. So the tranny is probably adjusting to my behaviors, which is why the RPMs were probably inconsistent and whatever it was doing, just relearning the ride basically. So I called Samuel and told him about running hot, and he kind of reiterated what I said about the transmission kind of learning my behaviors. But he's telling me, don't worry about it. Like you're just figuring your shit out. So here I am. It's 108 degrees in Arizona today, and I'm trying to get my transmission to get hot, and it's not getting hot right now. So one of the things we talked about was thermal bypass. So I don't know if you can see that. So I went ahead. I'm not into aftermarket parts and monkey juice or snake oils and all that shit. But one of the things that I found is this is a thermostatic bypass. So on the original equipment, you have a generic, it doesn't look fancy like this guy with the little ribs on it and stuff, but you have one of these in these rides that's connected between your transmission cooler and the transmission. So what I was told in the original equipment, the valve directs the fluid from the torque converter back into the transmission so that your transmission will heat up faster so you can get into operation and start doing your towing. But what happens with the original manufacturer part is that valve gets stuck, and then the transmission fluid never makes it to your transmission cooler. So you start running hot in your transmission. So in a cold weather environment, that might be cool, but down here in the hot weather environment, that may not be so cool. So did that bypass screw over my tranny in the beginning? I'm wondering. But what happens with this guy, let's see if I can get him where you can see. So in this thermostatic bypass, there's no valves in it. It's a straight through. So what this RevMax device does is as soon as you turn your vehicle on, it allows your transmission fluid to flow straight from the transmission, the torque converter, I think, straight out into your cooler and then back into the transmission. So it's not blocking that flow like the manufacturer's thermostatic bypass valve does. So that one, it gets stuck or it gets clogged or whatever the hell happens, and the ports are a lot smaller is what I'm told. So of course I don't have it out now, so I can't show it to you, but I'm going to go ahead and pull that one out and compare the two. So basically, if you are in cold weather, that's telling me you are definitely going to have to idle your truck a little bit more to get the transmission warm, because it's going to be free flowing because of this guy. Down here in Arizona, this is probably going to be a pretty good item for me, because I want that cooler, that fluid to be hitting that trans cooler. The other thing is, if that valve is stuck and I want it to be hitting the cooler, it's never going to happen. So it's just circulating it from the torque converter to the transmission, and it's potentially never hitting the cooler. So is that what took out my tranny back in the day? Maybe, but my fluid wasn't burned or anything. So I'm gonna put this in. I'm trying to run the transmission temperature up right now to 172 so I can show that to you. But of course, now I'm doing the video, it's keeping it at a nice 165 degrees right now. So I'm gonna take it out on the road, get her hot. I may just do a quick video on that. But I'm gonna let you go for now. And when I swap these out, I want to compare the temperatures, and I'll try to get that on the video for you. But this was $109 directly from RevMax. I'm sorry, it was $100 from RevMax, $109 from Amazon. So whether you get it from RevMax or Amazon, it looks like the prices are about the same. So it comes with new seals. It comes with some new little pins that lock it, or little clips that lock it in right here. But it doesn't come with the little cover caps that hold those pins in place. So I'm going to probably have to retain those from the disassembly for the manufacturer. But let's give this a shot and see what it does for me. Okay, people, so this is, I guess, the second video. I was trying to get the transmission to try to get hot for me, but you can see it's at 176. I'm getting ready to go through a drive-through right now, but I could not get it past about 172 degrees. So I used to run 168, so 172 ain't bad, but I'm not towing. So I'm 8 degrees away from my bingo temperature that I don't like. When I get to 180, I like to pull over and let the tranny cool. So the truck has been doing pretty good right now. It was staying about 172. And like, of course, I'm trying to make a video about the transmission getting hot, and it's not going to show that, right? So when I'm moving, it was doing about 172, which I expect, because you got the ram air coming in through the front of the engine, or the cooler, the radiator, all that stuff. You know, I mean, it's, you know, you got some air kind of blowing through that, right? But the 172, I'm still skeptical of that, just because I know when I put the trailer on there, it'll probably go up to 180 degrees, no problem. So anyways, I just wanted to show you that temperature real quick. Howdy ho, peepers and creepers. All right, so I was just trying to get a good video for you here. I hate to be actually holding this damn phone trying to do this shit, but my temperature is fluctuating between 176 and 182. So, and definitely when I stop, it shoots up really quick. I saw 188 at one time. So I get it. I don't have the ram air when I'm stopped, but I feel like it shouldn't be shooting up that fast. So I'm going to go ahead and do the RevMax install anyways, the thermostatic bypass, just to see what happens. But yeah, I'm not even towing right now. So if I was towing right now, I bet you I'd be up in that 200 degree range. But anyway, sorry for the choppy videos.